A poor black boy says he can wake Millionaire's daughter. What happens next? He gripped his daughter's tiny hand as the doctor's words shattered him. We did everything we could, but she may never wake up. David Miller, a millionaire who once ruled glass towers in the city, now sat powerless in a sterile room where machines breathed for his only child. Outside, rain lashed against the windows, but the real storm was inside his chest. A guilt that no fortune could erase. What would you have done in his place? Stay with me till the very end, and let me know where you're watching from, so I can see how far the truth really spreads. David Miller sat slumped beside the bed, his hands gripping the small, lifeless fingers of his daughter. Sophia was only 10, but her face looked drained of childhood, her chest rising only because of the machines keeping her alive. His bloodshot eyes searched for signs, anything, but there was nothing. The doctor's words still rang in his head, telling him they had tried everything, that she might never wake up. There are storms that do not come from outside, but from the silence of a white room, where your child's breath hangs by a thread. David was a man who owned buildings and glass towers, a millionaire who had once seemed untouchable. Yet at this moment he was nothing more than a father staring at the fragile body of his only child. His expensive suit was wrinkled, his tie loosened, but the weight crushing him was not something money could fix. For years, he had buried himself in work, running from a guilt too heavy to face. The guilt began with the sound of screeching tires, with the flash of broken glass on a highway 2 years ago. He had been the one behind the wheel, ignoring the fatigue that blurred his vision. His wife died at the scene, her last breath gone before the sirens arrived. Sophia had survived, her body intact, but something inside her cracked. She stopped laughing the way she used to, stopped asking for bedtime stories, her eyes clouded with fear he could not erase. Now he sat powerless, watching her sink further away, and all the empire he had built seemed meaningless. His hand trembled as he brushed a strand of hair from her forehead, whispering silent prayers he did not know how to form. He would have given away everything he owned just to hear her voice again. As he leaned closer, memory and regret tangled, and the sound of that night's crash echoed in his mind. He knew that no matter how long he lived, he would never escape the truth. He was the one who drove, and in a single instant, he had lost his wife and the light inside his daughter. David carried the memory of the crash like a shadow that never lifted. He was the one behind the wheel, the one who refused to stop when his wife asked him to rest. In a single instant he lost her, and Sophia survived with no visible scars, but a silence that spoke louder than words. From that day, David buried himself in work. He built taller towers, signed bigger deals, and chased every distraction that kept him away from the empty chair at his dinner table. Each contract was another brick in the wall he used to keep grief out. But grief found its way in, through Sophia's quiet eyes that no longer sparkled, through her trembling hands whenever she heard tires screech outside. He saw it all but turned away. Instead of sitting by her side, he sent toys, tutors, and expensive gifts. He convinced himself that comfort could be bought, even as unopened boxes gathered dust in her room. There were nights she looked at him, searching for something more than a father's wallet. She wanted words, presence, love. He gave her absence. Sophia's silence deepened, her body carrying what her father refused to face. Until one morning she collapsed, limp in his arms, as if her small frame had finally surrendered. The doctors called it psychological shutdown, the mind shutting off to escape what the heart could not carry. David called it the price of his cowardice. No building, no fortune, no empire could buy back what his silence had stolen. It was close to midnight when Nurse Maria appeared at the door, her face pale but calm. She whispered that someone was waiting in the hall. David dragged himself out of the chair, half expecting another doctor with bad news. Instead, he froze. On the cold bench sat a boy with bare feet, his hoodie too thin for the night, his face smudged with dirt, but his eyes steady. It was Isaiah, the neighbor boy, Sophia's only real friend. David's voice cracked as he asked how the child even got inside. Isaiah did not flinch. He said he came because Sophia needed him. He said he knew how to help her. The words hit David like smoke in his lungs, hard to believe and harder to ignore. Every rational thought told him to call security, to send the boy away. Hospitals were no place for barefoot children, but something in his eyes stirred a memory. He thought of Sophia under the oak tree, the way her laughter returned only when Isaiah sat beside her, humming songs and telling stories. He thought of his wife's voice telling him once that sometimes hope comes in unexpected shapes. David's chest tightened as reason and desperation collided. He could not trust science anymore. It had failed him. Could he trust this boy? His hand trembled on the door handle as he made his choice. For the first time in years, he stepped aside and allowed faith to win over logic. He nodded to Maria, his throat dry, and whispered that Isaiah could come in. The boy stood, small and calm, and walked towards Sophia's room as if he already belonged there. David followed, heart pounding, torn between fear and the fragile flicker of hope. Isaiah stepped quietly into the room, his bare feet making no sound against the polished floor. He walked straight to the bed and placed his small hand on Sophia's forehead. For a moment, his lips moved as if whispering something only she could hear. Then he turned toward David, his eyes calm but heavy. He told him that Sophia was waiting, not for doctors, not for machines, but for the words her father had never spoken. David frowned, shaken, unable to understand. Isaiah said Sophia once told him the only thing she longed to hear was that her father was proud of her. The words hit David like a blow. He staggered back, his chest tightening as shame rose to the surface. He realized he had never said it, not once, not even when she showed him her drawings or when she braved her fears. He had hidden behind money and silence, and now those unspoken words held her in the dark. His throat burned as tears welled. He looked at Sophia, so small beneath the wires and blankets, and the dam inside him finally broke. His voice trembled as he confessed the truth he had carried since that night. He admitted he had been exhausted, that his wife had asked him to stop the car, but he refused. He thought he could push through, and because of that choice, he lost her. He told Sophia he had punished himself by burying her mother's memory, but in doing so he had punished his daughter too. His words spilled out raw, unfiltered, filled with regret. For the first time, he told her he was proud of her, proud of the way she kept going, proud of her strength, proud of the way she reminded him of her mother's heart. His tears fell onto her blanket as he gripped her hand. He promised he would never waste another moment, that if she came back, he would choose her over every deal, every building, every burden. His chest heaved with sobs as he whispered over and over that he was sorry, that he was proud, that he loved her. Then something shifted. The monitor's rhythm changed, just slightly, but enough to draw Maria's gasp from the corner. David froze, his eyes darting to the screen, then to his daughter's hand. He felt a faint twitch, a tiny movement of her fingers against his palm. His breath caught as disbelief and hope collided inside him. Maria stepped closer, her hand covering her mouth, eyes wide with shock. David held onto that twitch like it was a lifeline. For the first time in years, his words had reached her. The next morning, David barely moved from his chair when Isaiah returned. The boy walked in as if he belonged, his calm presence filling the room more than the machines ever could. He looked at David and told him gently that Sophia needed a song, the one her mother used to sing. David's throat closed. He had buried that melody deep, locking it away with his grief, because every note carried the weight of the woman he lost. He shook his head at first, whispering he could not, that it hurt too much. Isaiah only answered that Sophia still remembered it, even if David tried to forget. David's chest burned as memories rose uninvited. Nights when his wife cradled Sophia, humming the tune that soothed both mother and child. He used to sit nearby, watching them, never realizing how sacred those moments were until they were gone. Now to bring back that song felt like reopening a wound he thought he could never face. His hands trembled as he pressed them to his face, whispering that he was not strong enough. Isaiah stood quietly, his steady gaze holding more wisdom than his years. He said Sophia needed to hear her father's voice, not perfect, not polished, just honest. David turned to his daughter, Her eyes were still closed, her lips pale, but he saw the faint movement in her fingers from the night before. He realized this might be the only bridge left between them. Slowly, he sat closer, his voice raw before a single note left his mouth. He began to hum the first line, broken and uneven, but familiar. His throat ached as the words stumbled out. There is light in the shadows and stars in the rain. He stopped, shaking, tears falling, but Isaiah nodded for him to continue. The second line came softer, still cracked, but filled with all the love he had locked away. Hold on, little dreamer. You will fly once again. The room seemed to shift. The steady rhythm of the machines grew steadier, stronger. David felt Sophia's hand twitch in his palm, this time not a reflex, but a squeeze. He gasped, choking on the next words, but forced them out, singing not for perfection but for connection. Every note was a confession, every lyric a promise. Sophia's eyelids fluttered, a faint tremor racing through her lashes. Her fingers gripped his hand tighter, as if clinging to the sound of his broken song. Maria pressed a hand to her mouth, whispering that she saw it, that something was changing. David bent over the bed, singing through sobs, his forehead against his daughter's. The melody cracked again and again, but it did not matter. It was not just a song, it was an apology, a memory, and a lifeline. When the final words left him, silence filled the room for a breath. Then the monitor beeped faster, and Sophia's chest rose deeper, steadier. David looked at Isaiah, unable to speak. The boy smiled softly and said she had found her way back. David had almost stopped breathing when it happened. Sophia's lips parted, and the faintest sound slipped out. "Daddy." His body collapsed forward, tears streaming as he pulled her into his arms, terrified to let go. He buried his face in her hair, whispering that he was there, that he would never leave her again. Her small fingers tightened around his shirt, proof that this was not a dream. Sophia's voice was weak, but her words carried a strange clarity. She said she had been lost in the dark, floating where no sound could reach. Then Isaiah appeared, holding her hand, singing softly like he always did under the oak tree. He told her she was not alone, and then she heard her father's voice breaking through the shadows. That was the moment she turned back. David could barely see through his tears, stunned that she remembered what he had tried so hard to say. Dr. Hannah hurried in, staring at the monitors that no longer told the same story. She muttered about anomalies, about rare recoveries, without medical explanation. Maria, still trembling, whispered that she had seen the boy with her own eyes, yet the hospital's security logs showed no child had entered or left. The cameras revealed only David by his daughter's side, singing and weeping. Isaiah was nowhere. David sat frozen, torn between gratitude and disbelief. His daughter was alive, breathing, speaking, yet the one who guided her back seemed to vanish like mist. He looked at Sophia, and she smiled faintly through her exhaustion. She whispered that Isaiah promised she would never be lost, as long as her father's voice called her name. And in that moment, David stopped questioning. For him, it was not science, it was a miracle. David was no longer the same man who once drowned himself in work. Every night he sat by Sophia's side, telling her stories or singing the lullaby that once brought her back. He had learned that love was not measured in what he could buy, but in the time and words he finally dared to give. Sophia, slowly regaining her strength, carried her sketchbook everywhere. One afternoon, she showed him a picture that silenced him. It was Isaiah, drawn in careful strokes, one hand stretched out from the dark. Underneath, she wrote, "He didn't have wings, he had faith." David held the drawing for a long time, his throat tight. It was more than a picture. It was a reminder of the boy who had saved his daughter when nothing else could. Staring at it, he felt something stir, an idea that grew out of memory and regret. He turned to Sophia and asked what she thought about sharing that hope with other children who were hurting. Her eyes lit up as she nodded, as if she had been waiting for him to say it. Together, they dreamed of a place where stories and music could heal, where no child felt alone in the dark. From that conversation came echo of hope, a foundation that David funded but Sophia inspired. It was not about towers or wealth anymore. It was about giving other children the voice and light that Isaiah had given her. And with every new story shared, every song sung, they kept his presence alive. For David, it was more than charity. It was redemption. For Sophia, it was the proof that miracles leave a legacy. 1 year later, Sophia stood on a small stage, her voice carrying the same song that once pulled her back from the edge. David sat in the front row, his hands clasped, tears in his eyes, watching his daughter sing with a strength he thought he had lost forever. As the last note lingered in the air, he caught sight of a boy in the crowd, barefoot, smiling softly. In the blink of an eye, Isaiah was gone, leaving only the echo of his presence behind. There are miracles that do not arrive with thunder or lightning. Sometimes they come in the form of a poor boy with bare feet, reminding us that love and honest words are the true power that moves a life. David held Sophia close after the performance, knowing the world would always doubt, but he had seen enough to believe. And in that belief, he found peace, faith, and the courage to keep singing so his daughter would never feel lost again. From a broken man haunted by guilt to a father who found redemption through love, David's journey with Sophia was nothing short of a miracle. A barefoot boy named Isaiah became the bridge between silence and hope, reminding us all that words of love can save more than medicine ever could. This story is not only about one family, it is about every heart longing to be seen, held, and heard. Now I will tell you, if this story touched you, share your feelings in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share Emotional Echoes so more hearts can find healing. Thanks for listening.